Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab. As you see, I'm representing today. I think somebody's going to get an all sports trophy. We'll talk about that a little bit. Oh, I like it when you were down, I should say up actually for the baseball tournament. You got your MEAC Nation on. Yes.
We represent both sides of the HBCU sphere.
There you go. Welcome to episode 269 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live. The KSOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, who created a Twitter storm talking about the Howard is going to the SWAC. I guess we'll deal with that in a little bit. In the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. And that's multi-Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper. So before I get it going, AD Drew, how you doing today?
Doing excellent, Dr. Cavil, doing excellent. You know, you ever had one of those just raggedy days and things just don't go right, just don't go as planned, but some reason I still out up here on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. You know, that's the one, constant being a part of this show, either in front of the camera or behind the camera, it seems like.
Well, we like the way you're constant on the show, which brings us, as everybody sees now, that Mike is out on assignment. We still trying to figure out what that means. But we also have Charles out on assignment, and we're going to see if we can bring him in, because when Charles is out on assignment, it looks like he's at least trying to work. My understanding that Charles is in Jackson, Mississippi, covering a camp there. So we're going to see if we can bring him in and let him talk a little bit about the camp there. Let's see if he's ready. We might take a quick break and come back and bring him in and make sure he can give us a breakdown of what's going on. So let's take our first quick break in here and set him up so he'll be ready to go.
He's here, Doc. You still want
to well, let's wait on paying the bills. You know, we can always pay the bills, but let's wait on that. We got nothing other than the superstar of We Believe, I Love. Man, y'all got so many name tags, hashtags going around here. Coach Prime, what do you like? Coach Cody.
Cody.
I've been saying, how's it going, Charles?
I'm doing well, Doc. Doing well over here at Jackson, over here at Coach Prime's elite camp. Over the next couple of days, there will be a tremendous number of campers, over 500, close to 600 campers, 400 today, 175, I believe, tomorrow for the elite camp. And then you have a 7-on-7 camp that will be on Saturday. So it's a whole lot of action. I don't know if you can see it over my shoulder, but you got quarterback group throwing, you got running backs against linebackers, a lot of competition. I'm a turn, and hopefully you see a lot of fans in the stands. So real festive atmosphere out here.
Man, that's pretty big time. What makes this unique in terms of the HBCU landscape of this being a part of Jackson State University, SWAC, and HBCU overall?
I think the unique part about it is that you have so many young kids who are excited to be a part of this HBCU sphere, this Jackson State sphere, if you will. But one of the things, just in talking to a lot of the kids, they're just excited to be here in the state and excited to work in front of these coaches. A lot of pro coaches, they're getting a lot of great up close instruction from a lot of guys. You got some pro guys out here walking around. You probably have a lot more walking around tomorrow, but sports information director told me there are 22 different schools out here in terms of coaches from high school, a lot of Division I and JUCO ranks as well. You'll have over 40 some odd schools here tomorrow.
Well, we can't let it all be about DI love. I mean, although it seems to be Jackson State all the time, but you know, there's a little something that happened. We'll talk about a little bit.
Congratulations!
Yeah. I thought I'd represent, and you know, I was in Charlotte, so I represented for the home team. But before we let you go, let me let Drew get in here and ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, Charles. You know, you mentioned some of the stuff that's going on in the camp, and you've been around athletics enough to know, especially around these football camps. You've got all different kinds of football camps. You've got the quote-unquote fun camp where you let kids just come out and have fun with just a little instruction. Then you got some of the deep instruction where people really get inside the individual skills and drills that you need for that position, and all kinds of camps in between. So what type of camp atmosphere do you see there of that spectrum from one to the other? What type of camp do you see there? What type of athletes do you see participating in this camp?
First and foremost, let me tell you, I was blown away by the size of a lot of sophomores and freshmen around here today. You talk about juniors and seniors. If you know anything about Prime and Coach Prime, I mean, it is all about competition, and more competition. So it is one of those type camps. It is not fun and games, but it is definitely guys trying to get on the radar. And that's one of the things a lot of coaches were talking about in terms of doing your best, competing hard so that you can get on the radar, especially for those rising sophomores and juniors, you know, trying to get those scholarship offers. But, you know, you got a lot of guys. I mean, one of the things, they're diving for balls around here. You've seen a couple of tackles. You've seen, you know, guys kind of had to be broken up a little bit. But it is that sort of competition. And we haven't even gotten to tomorrow where the quote-unquote elite prospects will be coming in.
With that being said,
can I follow up on that?
Oh, go ahead. Follow up, Drew.
Yeah, let me follow up on that. Now, of the athletes there, are these, in your opinion, are these FBS type athletes, future FBS athletes, FCS athletes, D2 athletes, mix? What percentage would you equate that to as far as FBS athletes, FCS athletes, and possible D2/NAIA athletes?
That's a great question, AD. I think one of the things that I've seen thus far is you have a good mixture of both. Today, you have a lot of guys who have that quote-unquote FBS height to weight sort of deal that everybody looks for. A lot of those sorts of guys. You have some undersized guys that are super fast. You're talking about sophomores and rising juniors. Some guys were running 4.47s, you know, 4.51s, things of that nature. So you got some guys that are some burners out here. You got some pretty elite guys, and I guess we haven't even got to the quote elite guys on tomorrow. And then I think the 7-on-7 will be very spirited as well.
All right. Anything for the big guys before I turn it back over to Charles? Just curious.
A lot of big guys over here. A lot of guys getting the reps in
the trenches.
A lot of guys. Yes, indeed. That's where the skirmishes kind of have broken out. You know, you talk about competition. That's been fun to watch. It's been really fun to watch.
All right.
With that being said, as a follow-up and sticking with the camp a little bit before we maybe transition to another component, what has you most excited about, you know, being able to really be in the mix and see this from a different level? What has you, your juices running, if you would, overflowing?
I think, you know, that we started this 2022 season. A lot of the campers are a lot of the players. They're excited about the new strength and conditioning coach. They're already talking about how much he's been putting them through the paces already. But a lot of the sort of hands-on instruction that you see these guys, they've really grown leaps and bounds from 2021. And one of the themes that you get from everybody is everybody knows the expectations. Everybody knows that meat was left on the bone last year in terms of the Celebration Bowl. and they're ready. They're excited to get back, get back to camp, to be honest with you.
I like the meat left on the bone. That's pretty interesting. Framework to put it is people are hungry to get some things done this season, even more as that first full season, if you allow me to use that second coaching stint, what Jackson State was able to do. With that being said, I wanted to follow up in terms of off the field. You have the information out there about coaching coming on board. Can you provide any verification updates on that? And if so, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I got a chance to meet Coach Tim Brewster, who, of course, has FBS experience, former head coach at the University of Minnesota. He's excited to get out here. He'll be one of the tight ends. He'll be the tight ends coach for Jackson State. But, of course, he brings a wealth of experience. Of course, his acumen in terms of recruiting has been well documented in terms of what he was able to do at Florida. But, one of the things that always sticks out with regards to this staff, Doc, is the camaraderie. They have a lot of fun, but they get a lot of work done as well. So those are the things that you really take notice of when they are around each other.
No doubt. Appreciate your time. We'll get in here and let you get back to the business in terms of you being on assignment. We don't want to get Coach Brown too mad, hogging a little bit of this attention, but tell him we appreciate it.
Hey, Charles, I need some inside information. I need to know how Jackson State going to beat FAMU so I can make sure I tell Coach Simmons what's going on so we have a counter ready for you.
No bulletin board material for you, AD. I'm sorry. Hey, they're going to have to put the work in. I know FAMU is loaded, so I don't know what this 2022 squad is going to do yet, but I tell you what, September, Labor Day weekend, we'll see them.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it.
I did hear it sit across for the championship game, Alabama State head coach Eddie George. He had some mixing in. He said he got a little coach. He wants to know some information too. He said if I give him, he'll hook me up. So I'm just saying.
I think one of the exciting things about this upcoming 2022 season, Doc, is everybody has gotten better, and the question becomes, has Jackson State gotten that much better? So, that I think that's a question that's out there for us for SWAC Media Day. But, I mean, the way the entire SWAC has gone around and they picked up the pieces that they've needed, this is going to be one of those seasons for the ages. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I don't care who it is. Somebody just needs to beat the BAC.
Coach Maynard of Alabama A&M, he wants to make sure that he gets his Bulldog bite in here. He said, oh, no, another Lee I like show. So he wants to know some information about Alabama A&M. He thinks the Bulldogs going to be just fine. He wants to know what y'all.
Hey, I know Coach Maynard, he brought in a whole lot of FBS transfers and things of that nature because, I don't think they want to see that homecoming thing happen again. So I know everybody's going to be loaded for this Jackson State squad. It's going to be a heck of a season. Looking forward to it. I tell you what, I'm really excited about the new strength and conditioning coach. That's kind of the buzz around here. Is everybody's bodies are tired from the first 2 days of work. He's really getting them.
That sounds good. But as Drew said, MEAC and South Carolina State, those Bulldogs over there chomping a bit. They won't want to get it back out there, but we know we got a new coach over there at Morgan State, Norfolk State. So MEAC says, as well as Howard, they say, don't count us out. We want some of that.
Hey, it's somebody down in Montgomery saying, hey, don't forget about me. We was with him this weekend, Coach E-Rob. We was up there in the press box on Sunday talking about what he gonna do in the SWAC also.
Hey, we ain't got
there's a goal. There's a goal. MEAC has bragging rights. I acknowledge it. Hey, there's a bar that the Jackson State has to get to. The reality of it is the SWAC hasn't beaten the MEAC since Grambling and Celebration Bowl. There's a bar that everybody has to reach up towards. And the MEAC right now, they got bragging rights.
I like that attitude. Well, that'll do us. We hit our break. We'll get back to it right after this break. Appreciate you, Charles. Get back to work. Like I said, we don't want to make sure Cody is mad at us. Let him know we said, hey.
No doubt about it. We'll do.
All right, Charles.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
Maureen is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon, so now she's free to become Maureen the Merrier. Food is her love language, and she really loves her grandson, like really loves.
Don't worry, Ma. We'll be there soon.
We? Is this the one?
Well, let's say I found the one who takes me to another level. Always stays calm under pressure. Most importantly, the one that helps me discover the coolest places.
This sounds wonderful.
Come outside, I'll introduce you.
They're here.
Definitely the one.
Introducing the all-new Nissan Frontier.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Some of y'all have been following me on Twitter, and I posted on Facebook and Instagram. You know, I was telling you a little bit about the conference over there, the Higher Education Leadership Foundation, which was founded essentially by the president of Wiley College, with his strong emphasis of making sure that more collective work was coming together with HBCU presidents. So you have a lot of the NIA presidents, NCAA Division II presidents, certainly a lot of the private HBCUs that are coming together. You know, Felton over there at Edward Waters, like I said, coming together. And I had a chance to present a lot on the value add of college athletics using qualitative and quantitative data analysis. In the second half of the show, we'll take a little deeper dive, but I want to kind of tease that out. And that's why we're starting a little later than possible. But it was a fascinating opportunity to get out there and talk and listen to some of the experts, as you would say, that are in the field in terms of presidents, VPs, financial VPs in terms of CFOs, as well as VPs of athletics, directors of athletics, commissioners, commissioner of CIAA, Williams was there, Commissioner Kiki Baker-Barnes was there, of the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. She was the one that actually invited me down and made sure I had a platform. And so it was tremendous to see that type of work, and just want to let the people know that people out there listening, putting in work, interesting framework that was set up there. So we get a chance to take a deeper dive in terms of what that looks like in a lot of ways. So I kind of wanted to sneak that out there a little bit before we got back into some news, but we'll get a chance to go in there even much more than we have so far in terms of breaking down what that looks like for all those that were asking some questions on that and wanting some more information. I think we'll get a chance to take maybe a little more dive in that in terms of what that looks like from that framework. But let's get into it a little bit. What's some news of the day that you wanted to jump into, Drew?
Well, I'm going to hold the Commissioner's Cup. Congratulations to Prairie View A&M, but we're going to come back to that. I want to get into some of this track, Dr. Cavil.
Yeah.
Let's get into this track. Let's start with North Carolina A&T, but let's start on the ladies' side, Dr. Cavil. We already know how great the men are. We don't highlight the women as much as we as we should.
Great point. That's fair.
And forgive me for mispronouncing her name, because I know I'm getting ready to mispronounce it. Grace Wakaka and Miss Salmon qualified in the 100 and the 200 meters for the Nationals in Eugene, Oregon. Yeah.
Tongue twister today.
Yeah. I'm really getting tongue twisted right here. Let's see. We got McDuffie in I believe that's in the quarter. So we've got 3 from A&T. You've got 4 Lady Bison who are going to Eugene, Oregon. We've got the 4x4 team. We've got qualifier in the 100 and the 200 meter dash. And yeah, so that's highlighting the women. And Coppin State, we've got some men who qualified. Joseph Manu in the double, the Michael Johnson, as I call it, the 100 and the 200.
Nice.
Qualified. No, that wasn't Michael Johnson. Who was it who ran the 100 and 200 in the race? Because Michael Johnson was 200, 400.
For 200 and 400 was Michael Johnson.
Can't remember who that was who ran the 100, 200.
Lewis did a lot of the 100 and 200, right?
Right, and Usain Bolt has the 100.
The most recent one that really broke everybody down.
Yeah. So my point is, Dr. Cavil, we need to have our eyes up in the Northwest, and we've got a lot of HBCUs representing in track. And can North Carolina A&T set their coach out on top in his swan song for A&T, because he does not take over the job at Tennessee until after the Nationals.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see what type of way that he goes out. You know, he wants to go out with a bang. Just how much of a bang is going to be fascinating. I think it's unfortunate in terms of what happened in terms of the women at the Big South and how that didn't allow them to qualify in like their own 4x100 as you saw the women. It'd been nice to see two HBCUs in there. But you have the men, obviously his son in terms of what he does, 200. He just broke a world record in terms of what he was able to do. So you look for him to have Ross Jr. to have a big weekend. And you even have Coppin State in there with Manu, Joseph Manu, that is, in terms of double up in the spring events, the NCAA National Championship, in the 100, 200 meter dash after his performance in both events at the NCAA East preliminaries on a wet Friday evening at Indiana University's Hall Track and Field Complex. So he's going to be getting in there and getting it done. So look to see what he's able to do at the Nationals. And some of the people he'll be up against, Middle Tennessee State, Alaba will be in there, Kentucky's Lance Lang, or some folks that he'll be running up against in terms of LSU, Dorian Campbell. So you see big-time Division I programs between Kentucky and LSU out of the SEC. They're always strong, as well as Tennessee. So with Ash over their favorite Ash, or some others that he'll be up against. But he's right in the mix with the time that he was able to bring. So it'll be fascinating to see, can he run one of his best races, whether that's in the 100 or 200 or both. You know, where they're staggered could be a part of that in terms of what's looking in there. But celebrating North Carolina A&T, as you said, to see if they can go out of the bang. You got Salmon and the freshman teammate Grace is going to be out there in terms of what they can get done in the Nationals for the 100, 200 meters. Will be along with senior 400 runner Delicia McDuffie is going to be getting in there, getting it done as they go up to Eugene, Oregon. And that is June 8th through the 11th when you'll start seeing what these individuals are able to do in terms of these big-time races. You'll see Salmon will be up, Trishana Hemmings of Clemson that ran a 13:13. So Salmon had that race at 12:78. So she could be in some good standings in terms of what they're able to do. Yeah, the Florida runner, just letting you know the mix in terms of some of these people that are out there that you keep your eyes on in terms of these races. So it's going to be fascinating to see what Coppin State Eagles are able to do, North Carolina A&T, the Aggies, both men's and women's, obviously. Howard in terms of that 4x4, the Lady Bison, as you talked about, what they're able to do. So I'm fascinated to see what this looks like in terms of these races. We've seen Lincoln at the Division II level continue to do what they're able to do in a lot of ways. We shouted them out last week in terms of being, top 5 programs up there. Not quite doing what they usually do in terms of national. We've seen it turn over a little bit. St. Augustine is another program, perennial historically in terms of what's going on there. And that's Lincoln, Missouri, for those that may not be familiar with the HBCU at the Division II level, that continues to churn out championships or top 5 finishes. So that is going to be fascinating to me in a lot of ways. Let's turn it over a little bit. And before we get into our second break, SWAC, in terms of the Commissioner Cup Award, was presented in Prairie View. And Prairie View did the triple fashion. You know, in track and field, they did the double-double in terms of winning indoor and outdoor. And that went a long way in terms of them getting the triple-triple, I call it this. When I say triple, meaning they won it in terms of the men's overall cup, and I'll break that down. They won it in terms of the women's overall cup award, if you would, for both the men's and women. And then they won the cup, which is overall, the way I should say that. So let's start with women first. Chivalry's not dead. It was the closest race, if you would, with Prairie View edging out Alabama State, 97-95. And in third place was Jackson State. In terms of some of the teams that you may be interested in terms of some of the other ones out there, Jackson is top 4, Texas Southern at 5. Tied for 6 is Grambling State and FAMU. They were tied at 58 apiece. In terms of the programs backing that up is Alcorn State at 55. Pine Bluff, the Golden Lions were 53.5, just edging out Alabama A&M. That was at 53 flat. You had Bethune-Cookman at 40 and Mississippi Valley at 19.5 in terms of the women. Again, Prairie View gets it done winning the Maggie Jacket Award. And the Maggie Jackie Award, for those that may not be familiar of what that is, just to give you some indication, since we have the new expanded members of the SWAC for FAMU and Bethune-Cookman folks that are out here jump on that. So you know what the Maggie Jacket Award is presented to the women's top athletic program in the SWAC. It is named after former Jackson State women's basketball coach Shadi Maggie and the former Prairie A&M track and field coach Barbara Jackett. Maggie was the first women's basketball coach at Jackson State, compiling 4 SWAC regular season titles and 3 straight National Association Women's Sports National Championships from 1978 to 1980. Jackett led Prairie A&M to 8 cross-country, 9 indoor, and 5 outdoor SWAC titles 1965 to 1991. She was also head coach of the 1992 U.S. Women's Olympic track team that brought home 4 gold medals, 3 silver medals, and 3 bronze medals from Barcelona, Spain. She recently passed, and we, paid honor to her. Rest in peace, Coach Barbara Jackett. In terms of the men, breaking down that a little bit, is the C.D. Henry Award. Prairie View edged out Jackson State that came in second. Little wider margin than on the women's side, which was 2 points. On the men's side, it was 5. Prairie View was 70, Jackson State was 65. Texas Southern is top 5 in both, as they are 62, much like Jackson State was top 5 and actually top 3 in both, if you would. Southern, 4, so they top 4, running 4 solid on each, is in the 4th spot at 56 points. Alabama State, top 5 program, 51.5. So it's interesting to see that you see those top 5 programs pretty much across the board, with FAMU at 6, just outside of that, and they were tied for 6 in terms of overall, give you some indication where they are with the overall landscape of the program, which brings on some of the questions that y'all talked about or heard on the O&G, and it's been out there on the Spittosphere in terms of the financial framework, what people are looking at FAMU athletics. Won't take too deep a dive in there, but it'd be interesting to see the correlation and if anybody's looking at that in terms of overall performance. Bringing us to number 7 is Alcorn State with 44. Bethune-Cookman had a higher finish on the men's side than the women with 43.5. At number 9, you have Arkansas Pine Bluff, which is 9 on both sides. Grambling dips as they were high on the women, but lower on the men at 38.5. And at 11, you have Alabama A&M at 11 at 34.5, and Mississippi Valley State at 22, rounding out the bottom of both the men's and women's. C.D. Henry, give you some updates for those that are not aware of that. The C.D. Henry Award is presented to the top men's athletic programs, as you probably could get. The award is named after C.D. Henry, former Grambling State chairman of the College of Health, Physical Education, and Recreation Department from 1958 to 1974, as well as serving as the executive officer and secretary statistician for the SWAC in 1968 all the way to 1973. Henry became the first African-American assistant commissioner of any conference office when he joined the Big Ten Conference in June of 1974, to give you some historical perspective of what that is. And so that brings us to the overall. Who got it done overall? As you can imagine, with Prairie at the top of women's, Prairie at the top of the men's, you knew that they were going to get it done as they win the James Frank Commissioner's Cup Award with 167, stretching it out for Jackson, which was number 2 at 150 points. Alabama State is 146.5. Texas Southern at 121.5. At number 5 is Southern, 119. FAMU is 6, 106.5. At number 7 is Alcorn State at 99. Grambling State at 96.5. Arkansas Pine Bluff at 95 even. Alabama A&M at 87.5. Bethune-Cookman at 83.5. And Mississippi Valley at 41.5 of the 12 top teams. And James Frank, for those don't realize, obviously the Commissioner's Cup, so you imagine he was the commissioner. But let me give you a quick bio just so you can take some appreciation of just what is the news about James Frank. This is awarded the Commissioner Cup named after former league commissioner James Frank, who led the SWAC from 1983 to 1998. It's awarded to the university compiling the highest combined total men's and women's all sports points. From 1983 until his retirement in 1998, Dr. Frank served as commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, better known as the SWAC. He returned to his position as interim commissioner in April of 2001, where he served for 20 months. During his guidance, the conference evolved to rank among the elite in the nation. Dr. James Frank was one of a few individuals who elevated through his collegiate ranks as a student athlete, college educator, college president, and conference commissioner. During a long and distinguished career of over 15 years, Frank's efforts and influential leadership touched the lives of countless people and resulted in a positive change in many organizations he served. He was the first African-American to be president of the NCAA during his stint before he came from the SWAC up there at Lincoln University, where he was the athletic director up there. So a lot of history when you talk about Dr. James Frank. So I did want to share that. Before we go to this break, any thoughts overall based on some of that history that you thought was important to share? And I'm glad that you brought that out because this is a great point.
Yeah, well, for me, being a newbie to the SWAC, obviously been MEAC most of my collegiate life, with Florida A&M being in the MEAC, and obviously a SIAC fan with my background at Tuskegee. It's nice to know the backstories of why these awards are named for whom, what they did, and what their contribution was to their institutions and or the conference. That's number one. Number two, when you look at what it takes to win an award such as this, either on the gender level or on the overall level, it's a shout out to not only the student athletes, but to the coaches, the trainers, the SIDs, the athletic director, the administration, and the boosters, the contributors, the alumni, and everybody has their part in doing this. And when you look at this, you know, obviously Prairie won the Triple Crown, but you take a look at Jackson State, placed in the top 3 in all of them. Alabama State, top 3 in two of the 3 categories. So these show departments that have vision. Even when changes in leadership occur, these departments have the vision, have the people in place who could continue on the mission, no matter. I don't want to say it's plug and play because it's not that simple. But the fact that you have a plan that when Dr. Cavil gets hired to come to your university, all he has to do is pull the plan off the shelf, read it, make sure he understands, ask the appropriate questions, and then implement the plan. That's, to me, from the outside looking in, what this means, that these institutions rank highly. And last thing before I get out of here, I look at where Florida A&M and Bethune ranked in their first year, and they ranked smack dab in the middle. But they came in with one arm tied behind their back because Florida A&M and Bethune, coming from the MEAC, did not compete in all of the sports that you could have qualified for points in. You know, FAMU just so happened to drop their tennis team just before they entered into the SWAC. Neither one of these institutions have women's soccer. Bethune does not have women's bowling. So I expect as these institutions will ultimately add those missing elements into their catalog of sports. And once they do, let's see how far these newbies move up the ladder in a few years once they add those missing sports to their library.
Oh, that's a great point when you talk about those sports that they're not participating in and how it affects the scoring. Because you do have some other SWAC schools. About 5 years ago, the SWAC went away from their mandate to making sure that you had to offer all sports. So, for example, as you talk about, Texas Southern doesn't have men's and women's tennis. But in terms of those top programs, you see them having a lot more sports. Jackson State, a couple of years, dropped their golf program. So it is going to be fascinating to see strategically how you work through that. And a lot of benefit, to be frank with this, in terms of Prairie View, is what they were able to do in track and field in terms of amassing so many points. So also the input and importance you may have on track and field can also put points on the board in terms of the programs coming to the SWAC. So great point that you make there overall.
One other thing, if Prairie View does not have the hiccup that they had at the start of the men's basketball season, because let's be real, you could almost throw the month of January out for Prairie View's basketball, which they barely qualified for the tournament, having to essentially backdoor the way into the tournament. Just think how high Prairie View would have finished had they not had the hiccup that they had in January in basketball, and was still able to win, not only on the men's side, because it affected the men more than it affected women, but it was still able to catch the overall Commissioner's Cup.
Woo, nice touch. Well, let's go to our midway break as we bring in the relievers. We still got 30 minutes. We're going to give you 30 more minutes. We're going to break down the trip to North Carolina, so we'll be right back after this break.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
Mobile banking from Truist actually works for you. It gives you simple, smart, personalized insights to keep you one step ahead. Because we think that's the kind of control you deserve over your money. When you start with care, you get a different kind of bank. Truist. Download the mobile app now.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I wanted to give you a little information. I told you, and some of those that follow me, and I appreciate you following me on all the social media platforms, particularly Twitter, is where a lot of the dialogue took place in terms of the conference that I put out there when I was on the panel and facilitating a presentation there. And it's part of the Higher Education Leadership Foundation. which is about developing leaders in the HBCU framework at various levels, but particularly when it comes to getting ready for the presidency. And so this is what they refer to as IIC 2022, which is the inaugural event, which is ideation, innovation, and collaboration, the future of HBCUs, hashtag IIC 2022. So you can go to Twitter and put that in there and you get some more information. But I thought it was important to kind of break this down and getting into this. And as we move forward, see about maybe getting Commissioner Dr. Kiki Baker-Barnes, who is influential in the organization, particularly this year, is they brought in a fourth track for the first time, athletic track, which I participated in. But there is an overall view that they kind of provide, which is the introduction in terms of this particular event, which was May 31st to June 2nd today. And again, that's why I was pushing things back so I can make sure I could get my boots on the ground here with some delayed flights. And overall of the HBCU sector today, and I won't read this all, but kind of ingest just to get you on top of this, if you would, as we get into some of this dialogue. And again, people ask for this question, so that's why I decided to go a little deeper than I normally would. Don't want to make this too academic, but I think it's important for those that seek to get more information about the business side of this, as I always like to talk about. The Higher Education Leadership Foundation and its partners welcome you to hashtag IIC 2022. We're excited to gather, ideate, innovate, and collaborate on behalf of the future of historically Black colleges and universities. We have invited dreamers, critical thinkers, and thought leaders in the public and private sectors to interrogate the essential question: what does sustainability and self-agency look like for all HBCUs? A paper I wrote many moons ago is still a foundational paper that looks at the history of HBCUs and can be moved from more of a sporting lens, athletics lens, which talks about the success and sustainability as part of that paper, particular frameworks that I developed over 20 years of research and practical applications. So that's some of the framework that outdraw me into participating in. You can expect a space for scholars, practitioners, industry leaders, and administrators to revolutionize HBCU educational content. Intentionally designed sessions centered around innovative solutions from across the network of HBCUs in an interactive seminar designed to reinvigorate professionals by encouraging a focus on social, emotional wellness. And some of the frameworks of this piece of puzzle, if you would, this 3-day session, talks about the value of viability and sustainability of HBCUs from 5 particular frameworks: the business finance track, institutional advancement track, academic affairs track, student affairs and enrollment track, and the last one that was added, which was the athletic track. And the questions to frame our thinking through this was: what is the value of HBCUs currently? How do we remain valuable and viable in the future? And how do we articulate that value into the nation? How can, a fourth one is, how can HBCUs increase sustainability overall? I wanted to particularly draw down, because there's a sporting context, is the athletic fourth track, which I was excited because they used that paper I talked about. Cooper, JN, Cavil, JK, Cheeks, the state of intercollegiate athletics in historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, past, present, and persistence, which is in the journal issues of intercollegiate athletics from 2014. One of the reasons I'm excited about this paper is because it's an open journal. So you literally can go to the internet, and I post it every so often, so people over the years that follow me have seen pieces of this. But you know, you gain new people of different parts, so they have not. So you literally can Google up HBCUs past, present, and persistence. The book will come up, but then right under that, the journal article will come up, and you literally can click on it. And as I said, it's an open journal, which is unlike most journals where you have to pay for. I was excited to publish in this journal because it was open, which means more people would have access to it. So that's some of the framing. It also talked about 3 divisions, NCAA.org, to give you some framing about that. NC member schools was NCAA.org. And obviously, we need not leave out NAIA even though this wasn't part of the framing of this discussion. I'll give you a little introduction here. Collegiate athletics can bridge gaps, bring communities together, and provide unique opportunities to the National Collegiate Athletic Association, covering 24 sports played by 1,098 schools across 3 divisions. While 53 HBCU schools are NCAA members, 23 are Division I, 20 public, 3 private, and 30 Division II, 15 public, 15 private. Another 50 HBCUs are unaffiliated. Within that 52, you have the NAIA members, which includes the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, which is 8 members strong. Has some intriguing news, but I want to put it out there. They're talking about some expansion on the table for some memberships that, if it gets done, will blow people away because it's so unique. One of the things I put out there in regards to working with Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes and encourage her to consider it, and hopefully the president see the value of what you're talking about. Obviously, you have the member in Langston, one of the 2 public institutions, the only public institution that plays football in the NAIA. Suno coming back, obviously, is another public institution in the NAIA. And then you have those institutions in the Red River Athletic Conference, 5 of them out of Texas, including Xavier now over there. And then you have some in the Southern States Leagues, Florida Memorial out there in Florida, Sun League, obviously Stillman College, to name some of those programs that are NAIA, and some other ones as well. But it talks about the funding at NIL. We got into that discussion, which was important. Due to policy changes, student athletes, compensation, name, image, and likeness, collegiate athletics is experiencing dramatic changes that shift the athletic makeup of universities within the NCAA. Also, the NIA, I must add, athletic departments must support the needs of students while addressing challenges for both academic and non-academic growth. We had the chance to interview the NIA president that talked about the first association that actually legalized name, image, and likeness, to give you some upfront about how upfront the NIA was in terms of moving it forward. I was excited about bringing that to the lab listeners. But it also talks about Division I in terms of academic progress. The NCAA implemented academic progress in 2003, I should say, to assess and improve academic performance of student athletes. The benchmark system rewards schools with strong academic performance while also punishing schools that do not meet standards. The Washington Post found that APR disproportionately penalized HBCUs for not achieving benchmarks such as student athletes retention, academic standings. A quarter of HBCU teams has single year APR scores below the minimum 930 between 2012 and 2014, compared to 6% of teams from non-HBCU institutions 2012, 2013, and 4% in 2013 and 2014. The benchmarks presume a baseline for student athletes and their backgrounds, but do not account for HBCUs having a different student body that predominantly white institutions. I like to call them historically white institutions. And I also like to use college athletes instead of student athletes. More on that later. You heard me talk about that. But a lot of that is about the mission driven of HBCUs and how that bangs against the fence in a lot of ways against NCAA. So he even has some discussions. One president, I won't put his name out there, that he even talked about, is there benefit, especially for Division II and NAIA institutions that do not get any money from, like you see Division I with the NCAA tournament, or some of the finances that it came out just recently with the academic progress components that they're giving funding to. Does it even make sense to be a part of the NCAA? Well, in that paper, succession plan was in that paper I mentioned earlier. So those that have interest, you can go check that out and get some frameworks about that. So last thing, I did want to get in some NI policies. We always have good discussions. We'll get in a little more of this during the summer session where we can put a little more meat on the bone, as Charles said earlier. But I think it's important to kind of frame NIL policies with the collectives and folks out there on this. What new interim NIL policy does. It permits individuals to benefit from their NIL, name, image, and likeness. Protects and promote the national recruiting environment and fair competition. Allow the membership to develop experiences that may impact future policy changes. Retain prohibition on pay for play and impermissible inducements. Incorporates student athletes' feedback. Acknowledges the need for school and student athletes to comply with state law. It does not, however, allow NIL compensation on enrollment at particular institutions. We saw a little beef about Alabama, Texas A&M, and Jackson State, I guess, that we put in there. allow compensation for athletic participation. Achievements permit compensation for work and performance. As we get in, maybe a little bit of discussion points here. There were some questions that were out here on this in terms of what this looks like, even moving forward in terms of this, is questions that frame the thinking and the discussions that took place around the athletic track work. 6 poignant questions. How do we better support athletes' needs, non-academic and academic? How are the athletic departments structured to support student athletes' needs and balance new compliant measures from NAIA to the NCAA? How do we meet staffing needs to support new athletic initiatives? How do we plug athletics into our overall university student enrollment efforts? How do we manage NIL to better grow and compete? What are the different ways the public, private, large, small institutions will or should tackle these changes? It's important from one thing that I need to put out here is since we have so much chatter on social media, particularly, and you know how I talk about marketing, there was a part of the funding of NILs that was in here that says better use of marketing and social media is a cost-effective opportunity to improve fan and community engagement. This includes updates to athletic departments' websites, social media pages, posting scores and schedules, which also is something that I'll talk about is the need for considered support and funding for alumni, because one of the reasons you do not have as much social media access is the number of people that are involved in what we refer to sports information departments and or the marketing departments, just the paucity of individuals that can do that work. So if there are direct funding opportunities, I think it would be embraced by these institutions to help standardize some of these things that we talk about, the marketing as well as social media, which I think contextually is extremely important. So wanted to kind of put that on the table as we got in here. So I hope that provides some additional contextual framework what's going on there. The gentleman from North Carolina Central with his family-based Jackson State University, finance side, really is working on a dissertation. I can't wait till he finishes it. And so that was fascinating to just kind of hear some of the work that he was talking about in his interview as I did with him. He did a great job of just talking about Derek McGee is the individual who went into the finances and talks about how sometimes we don't create all the costs associated with the student side of the college athletes that come in. So oftentimes at the board, there is a lower cost associated because they're just looking at what we're paying out in scholarships and not necessarily what these students are bringing back in terms of the cost of attendance and things of that nature getting into the university. So his points were spot on. We did not get to tape all that interview. I taped some of the questions out there, but we'll see about getting him on the show so he can talk a little more detail and pay that back. But with that said, I'll pass the mic over and let you jump in here. And I know that was a lot, Drew, but what are your thoughts in terms of what I kind of put on the table or any particular questions you may have?
First of all, before I even get into the questions, I just want to take a moment and thank you. Before I actually had a chance to rub elbows with you, when I would Google stuff and look up different things that I wanted to know about HBCU sports, business side of HBCU sports, there was his name, Cavil, because I didn't know how to say it then, that always seemed to come up. And I'm gonna be honest, I was looking for about some 75-year-old man because the work had expanded so many years. If you understand what I'm saying, that's why I was expecting somebody who's about 65, 70, 75 years old, who was trying to keep up with the times. And then obviously I had the opportunity to meet with you and have worked with you on a couple of projects. So for those who do not know, they think that it's just a podcast or a couple of tweets or a Facebook page. No. This brother right here, who I happen to share this screen with, has a wealth of knowledge that he brings, and a lot of times, y'all, he brings this stuff to you all for free. Now he don't give you everything for free, but he give you enough to whet your palate for free, if I'm making sense to you. So those of y'all who lab listeners, y'all need to go in right now and thank this brother for all the work that he has done throughout the years to help and support HBCU athletics. That I just had to get that off of my chest first.
I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Yeah.
But you know, the accolades are not why you do this, but I do appreciate the acknowledgement and know what's in your heart of why you got to the table. But I do sincerely appreciate that. And I'm glad that people recognize the work. That's more important, that people are utilizing the work. I mean, there are a lot of great academics out there that have labored literally for their life and put out some extremely important work, but it's not always utilized in the public sphere. So the fact that I'm recognized with, you know, commissioners, athletic directors, VPs, presidents were coming up to me acknowledging what I bring to the table, that is extremely important to me because they're utilizing the work and they're taking advantage of the opportunity. And if it wasn't for the lab listeners that are interested in this, there would be no need for this platform, no matter who wants to use it. So exactly. Shout out to the lab listeners that see this more than just a space to entertain. And let me be clear with this. There's nothing wrong with entertainment. You know, that has its purpose in place, but we try to do it a little differently. And we appreciate those folks that see some value in it. And obviously we try to entertain you as well. So we're not going to try to act like we're just the classroom here, because that's a little too much. Plus, I do get paid for the classroom style like that, so I don't want to put it all on here. But we'll put enough on here to make sure that we wet your palate. And if you want more, just let us know. We'll do that. But go ahead, Drew.
Yeah. I've totally lost my train of thought here for a minute because I just got a text from somebody. But the one question that I do have for you, Dr. Cavil, and it's going kind of always going back to the beginning of what you said. There were 5 different what did you call them? 5 different themes. And I know that's not the word that you used.
Yes, there were 5 different
tracks,
viabilities and tracks that they used. Correct.
Okay. My question is, were there any outcomes during this meeting on, and I know the problem did not get solved there, but were there any outcomes or planning for outcomes that combines all those 5 themes towards one common goal?
Yeah, there were outcomes that were workable out of each succession. And then they had these major sessions where they brought everybody together for some things. And they captured all. And so there are key components or key people that are over this that will over the year, I guess you would say, and beyond that, really, that will capture that and start working on groups that are looking at doing white papers. There'll be collective think tanks where a lot of the inertia and more information will take place of trying to churn out even more outcomes. So you had a lot of things that were posted for people to come back for, but this right now was to germinate that information and get that process really going. And you're right, it was not to solve anything immediately, because these are concerns that are not something that you can come in a couple of days and hours and think that you can just solve the world. These are issues that are deeply embedded and take time. And so part of those outcomes were captured, which is an important part of your question that you're asking there, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I hope, because obviously I've been a part of conferences like this, committees like this, think tanks like this, and so many times, Dr. Cavil, we come up with these great ideas over these 2-3 day conferences, and then no one else even thinks about it until next year this time for the next 2-3 year conference. So I challenge all those people who were there at that conference with you, Dr. Cavil, to actually, you're not gonna get everything done. I don't care how many ideas you have, you're not gonna get everything done. That's but right. I challenge you to make some progress towards go and at least if each institution knocks one of those things off the board, our HBCUs will be in a better place, in a better space on, let's see, June 2nd, 2023, than it is on June 2nd, 2022. Not saying that we're in a bad place right now, but you always want to see progress, Dr. Cavil.
Great point that you put it there. And I really think that's a tremendous place to leave it in terms of those thoughts, unless you have anything else that you want to share before we bring it to close. Tell people exactly where they can go get more of this great information on the Black College Sports Network.
Obviously, you're watching us on Dr. Cavil's YouTube and Facebook page, but for Black College Sports Network, we are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter at my BCSN and the number 1. You can go to the Apple App Store or Google Play Store, download our app, my BCSN / my JBN. Please download the app. A lot of content, and during the summer, we're going to be beta testing some exclusive only content via the app only. So as we're going to start moving towards some premium content, yeah, we still going to give you Inside the HBCU Sports Lab for free. We still going to give you Sports Wrap for free, ONG, the pregame show for free. But there are going to be some things that we're going to put into an exclusive content, members only category. So we're trying to get bigger and better, just like all those athletic directors and presidents that Dr. Cavil was with earlier this week are trying to get bigger and better. Myself, you can follow me on Twitter at BCSN Drew, BCSN DREW. Make sure you tune in this Sunday for me and my partner, Brian Fulford, as we bring you another edition of the BCSN Sports Wrap. And Dr. Cavil, I know the ones listening to us right now, so I won't even tell them that Brian and I are coming out with something new next week. Just stay tuned to the BCSN. We're just going to wet your palate over the summertime with some with a new concept. We're going to beta test it over the summertime. I just want y'all to say, so make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us. Give us a thumbs up if you can. One other thing, you're not the only one. Mine is not academic at all, Dr. Cavil. But I want to shout out the guy, Bo Carter, who gave me this book while I was in Montgomery, Alabama. Anybody who knows me, I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I am a St. Louis Cardinals fan. And this is on Dizzy Dean, historically one of the best pitchers in St. Louis Cardinals baseball history. I have not cracked the book open yet, have not had the time, but I just wanted to show it off. It's called Dizzy Dean of Baseball and My Puna by Gene Kirby with Bo Carter and Mark S. Donald. So if you get a chance, he did autograph it for me. You can't quite see it on the screen, but he did give me an autographed copy of it. So definitely got to get that in on my reading list. The last thing about baseball, tomorrow, right here on the BCSN, Minority Baseball Prospects HBCU All-Star Game. And what's going to be interesting about that All-Star Game, Dr. Cavil, you're going to have teammates playing teammates. This is not SWAC, MEAC, East, West, and everything like that. No, these teams are mixed up by positions. You know, so many outfitters. If you happen to play for Prairie View, fine. But the best pitcher, the pitcher you may be facing also may be from Prairie View. So it's going to be interesting to see when we get those same school matchups in this HBCU All-Star Game tomorrow, as I will be in Atlanta doing the play-by-play for the All-Star Game.
Before we close, I will give the track sessions that were involved to just let you know how deep the conversation was. Tuesday involved the overview of current issues for the new executive athletic administrators, strategic planning, policy making, student athlete wellness and compliance, DEI, assessing culture and climate in HBCU space, talent acquisition, athletics, rock stars, recruiting and retaining high profile coaches and athletes, who's next, preparing a pipeline for coaching and administrators, athletics, advancement and alumni affairs, maximizing revenue through collaborative partnerships, the value add of collegiate athletics using qualitative and quantitative data analysis. That was the one that I was facilitating. Selling the culture, multimedia rights versus third party. That was a very good session that was extremely well involved. Commissioner of the CIAA, Matt Williams, was the facilitator of that event. Re-imaging the HBCU Classic when revenue, culture, and feasibility collide. You also had digital marketing and branding using storytelling to enhance fan engagement. NIL and the HBCU student athletes. Are we ready? So those were what took place Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So you can see a lot of information was had. So I tell you all that just to let you know that you do have presidents, finance officers, CFOs, athletic directors / vice president of athletics, coaches, administrators, as well as faculty members that are engaged in this space and not just about working hard and doing what's necessary, but also trying to figure out the nexus. So I did want to put that on table because sometimes we don't share enough about what's going on in the background of people trying to put it. So that'll do it for us. Thank you for listening to Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday right here at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'd like to thank AD Drew for jumping in here and making sure that we provided you the best program possible for the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's DrKenyattaCavil. Inside HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, Inside HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Dream big and continue to move forward. We'll talk with you soon. Of course, AD Drew.
Lecture
Dismiss.
We'll holler.